Welcome back, guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's the 2025 Mazda CX-30. But more specifically, this is the highly anticipated base model, or the S that you guys have been waiting for, and it's in a color that Mazda likes to call deep blue crystal mica, which actually looks really good in person. It's like a very dark, shiny, sparkly black. It's kind of like looking into the midnight sky. But anyways, well, this is one of the most substantial $25,000 subcompact crossovers that you can currently buy. It's not perfect. So today I'm going to share the good, the bad, and the ugly to help you guys at home decide if this might be the right vehicle for you so you can expect to see a walk around. All the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts. And huge thanks to Goody Motor Mazda for letting me borrow this one for the day. I'll link them below because they sell below MSRP, they ship all over the country, and with that said, let's dive right into this review. And if you like Mazda, base model CX-30s, or my video, please be so kind to consider liking my video. Basically, that lets me know you want to watch more stuff like this. It does help the video get shared as well, and it'll help you by having the YouTube juice to show you more stuff like this. Thank you so much. But if you're new to Mazda, or the CX-30, there's a lot of things that you guys need to know. Mazda is a Japanese automaker, and they're one of the best. They're known for building very reliable, very safe, and honestly pretty sporty vehicles with nice interiors that are very human-centric. But Mazda hasn't always been like that. They came out back in 1920, so they've been around for over a century. And their first vehicle came out around 1930, but it wasn't until the 1970s that they actually rolled out their first vehicle on a ship to the United States market. Since then, Mazda has really been gaining a lot of popularity, gaining a lot of ground, and they're one of the fastest growing brands by percentage in the United States currently. But the CX-3, which was the predecessor to this, it was a very popular model. So then when they added a 0 to the name, making this the CX-30, it has grown a lot in popularity, especially in the United States and Canadian market, where this now sells around 100,000 units every single year or more. And when you start at $25,000 and you have all the same features that this has with only a few extra options on the window sticker, it's not really any surprise why these are so popular, so well selling, and honestly, they're one of the funnest subcompact crossovers that I ever get to drive. Thankfully, Mazda likes to give you guys options if you are considering to configure one of their 8 trim levels of the CX-30. So this being the base model and starting at about $25,000, it really includes a lot of the standard features that you guys would want, and it's probably the most substantial value there is. But there are 8 trim levels. The majority of those on the lower end are non-turbos, but the fact that Mazda actually offers a 320 pound-feet of torque turbo version of this is really impressive, because even the giants like Toyota and Honda don't offer a high-performance version of their subcompact crossover, but for 25 grand, you still get a lot of nice bits. You have 16-inch wheels, you have the 6-speed automatic transmission, the 2.5-liter 187 horsepower engine, you even have this fake chrome piece, you even have painted mirrors and handles, things that are not common on a lot of other base models. In fact, I just did a side-by-side comparison of this to the base model 2025 Crosstrek, and it's kind of surprising the differences between these and what Mazda offers that a lot of the competition does not. But one of my favorite things about this is the fact that it is a top safety pick, and it has very bright LED headlights as standard. Those things are awesome. I used to own a Miata. I had the same headlights, and holy cow, are they bright at night. And overall, these vehicles are very fun to drive. They're very small, so they are well balanced, and the physics of them just make them really entertaining on the road. It's about 14.5 feet long. The wheelbase, though, is 8.6 feet, so it has a nice long wheelbase for the overall length, making it very planted and stable on the road, especially where it's almost 6 feet wide and just under 5 feet tall. This weighs around 33 to 3,400 pounds. It really just depends on which options you have and which engine you have if you have the extra weight of the turbo and all the other higher end components. And then it has a payload capacity of 850 pounds. That is not class leading, but that is still actually pretty good, especially for this small of a vehicle. And it has around 8 inches of ground clearance, a 409 final drive ratio, and it can do a full circle in about 35 feet, but these are not rated to tow more than about 2,000 pounds. And then the last couple things to mention here is when you lock the vehicle. The gas door locks, or at least it should, but it sometimes takes about a minute depending on what computer setting you have. So make sure that the bums don't try to siphon any of your 12.7 gallons of gas, which is absolutely not class leading. Some compact crossovers have up to a 4-gallon larger gas tank for being the same class of vehicle as this, but it is rated for 26 city, 33 on the highway. I think that's due to cylinder deactivation, so you can still get about 400 miles of max road trip and range. And then it has a Bridgestone Trenza 215 65/16 tire. I actually think the wheel looks really good. This specific one does have the wheel lock, lug nut if you like that. And the machine gray looks pretty cool. This tire does have around 9/32 of tread. And then this is your key. Typical Mazda key with lock, unlock, panic button. No specific unlock for the hatch. There's also no power liftgate on this. And then it does not have proximity key features, which is unfortunate. So if I lock the vehicle, I can't just open it up with the handle like you can on a higher trim level. But the driver's side door panel opens up easily, and it opens up very large. The materials on here are also very nice for being a base model. You almost have like a fake leathery type of door card. You have still a variety of materials, which is pretty common for this type of vehicle, but it's all very nice, soft touch. Nothing is cheap looking, nothing is plasticky. You have just plastic on the door sill though. The mats, the carpet, and the all-weather are not yet installed, but that is an option that this has. You have the hood release. You have a knee airbag. You have a storage bin, you have some options, ventilation, lighting, more ventilation, a plastic steering wheel, and then a non-power adjusted, non-heated cloth seat, and no power moonroof or anything like that up top. And then sitting inside here is nice. It's really comfortable. It's very human-centric in design. The main issues I have are the cup holder placement. I don't like that they're underneath the dashboard, limiting how big of a drink you can have. And then I don't like that the windows are relatively small. You really can't see as well out of this as you can in some other vehicles. But I suppose the extra sportiness and how this drives better than most other subcompact crossovers probably makes up for that. So when we fire it up, the needles dance. You have kind of an analog gauge on the sides and a digital in the center. You can go through info, check out a few different bits of information. No heads-up display or anything. You also have the windshield defrost right there. You have the big screen. Maybe you can turn it to a touchscreen through the settings. Right now it is not set up like that though. And then it's controlled through the scrolly dial. Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are on this, and honestly, I like this screen. I like this scrolly dial. This has been less glitchy than a lot of other infotainment screens that I've experienced. And then you have physical climate controls. I do think they are software because you can, oh, actually, that is physical. You can just turn that to a set point. It's not just going to scroll forever like some of the other trim levels and other Mazdas. So that's kind of cool. And then physical buttons for where you want the heat and air ventilated to. You have some storage, non-charging. You have those cup holders. The backup camera, pretty bad. Trajectory lines don't move. I don't know why. The red is usually where the hatch should open to. And then you have electronic parking brake auto vehicle hold. You have the voice, you have the volume knob, and if you hold that down, you can turn off the screen. And then you have sport mode or regular mode when it's off. And then you have the sliding center armrest. When it's all the way back, you can lift it up, and it's actually pretty well sized with a couple USBs plugged in down there. With that said, though, not really a whole lot to talk about. You do have LED lights right here. You have a slide extension, and no lighting on the mirror. So I guess the LED light right there is supposed to make up for it. With that said, though, let's turn it off, and I'll hop in the back. And while having all the black plastic cladding is not necessarily my favorite thing, I know a lot of you guys like that, and that is going to help if you do take this thing off-roading, which is pretty cool. But you have a little bit of chrome up here. You have a painted handle. It just makes the entryway feel very fancy, especially for being a base model again. But the door panel, it opens wide, which I really like, because if you have dog kennels or cat kennels or children and safety seats or anyone that you need to get in here, it's going to be really easy to enter. The door panel, the materials are also nice. Sometimes vehicles, the back seats are noticeably cheaper because the driver, the person paying the bill for the car, is not the one sitting back here. So it's nice that Mazda did not cheap out back here when some others do. The seats, they are a little bit thicker and a little bit heavier than some other ones. And with the seat where I was at, it is sometimes kind of hard to get that thing down. And when it is down, you can tell the headrest is rubbing into the thing. You can push it down, but you can tell that that is a very snug fit. And it's kind of hard to get back up too. But when I sit back here behind myself at 5'11", it's tight. My knees are almost into the knee rests. I don't have vents, plugins, anything back here. It also doesn't look like this is designed for that. They have a different back part to the console. There's no plugins or anything. There's no armrests, no cup holders back here for anyone. And the windows are a little bit smaller than the other subcompacts. But again, it's just the same theme as the front. It's very uniform in design. And the roof actually has pretty good headroom, which I really like. The back of the CX-30 kind of looks like a frowny face, just like a lot of the other Mazdas, with the frown, the nose, and the eyes. And honestly, I don't think this color looks good when it's dirty, but when it's fairly clean, like I had it today, taking it through the car wash, it does look really nice. And then the hatch is easy to open, but again, it's a non-power liftgate. It also has this privacy shade built on, which is pretty cool. You can take that off, you can unhook it if you want to. Back here, though, there's about 20 cubic feet of room, which is average for this class of vehicle. You can see you have the basic stock mats. You have the all-weather mats that you paid for on the window sticker. Honestly, I don't understand why manufacturers don't just rebate the price of those. Why? You don't need two sets of mats. No one uses them, but that's just my opinion. And then you have the temporary spare down here, scissor jack, eye bolt hole, and all the other tools that you need. And when you drop the seats, you do have about 45 cubic feet of room, which is better than a small sedan, but that is not as good as some of the other compact crossover competition. And then when it is time to lower it down, it's pretty easy to reach up and to throw it down. You don't have to be too terribly strong to do that. And if we come around to the passenger side, you'll notice you still have all the same trim pieces. It still looks really nice. You have the blind spot monitoring. This even looks like a turn signal, which is really cool what this is offering you. And then you have the deep space blue color, which is what I think I'm going to rename that. But when you open up the door panel, it opens large and everything basically looks the same as the driver's side because you still don't have manual controls, although you do have one fewer control. You don't have the dial on the seat that you had on the driver's side. And then you don't have the extra switch gear that you have on the driver's side as well. There's also no storage on the transmission tunnel or above the glove box. It's also non-locking. I do think the vents look really cool though. That's just kind of a block out right there. And then the two-stage tray. It's probably about average for the room you have in here. And with that said, let's come around to the front. I'll pop the hood and I'll show you what the little 2.5-liter Skyactiv G engine looks like. Under the hood is a 2.5-liter Skyactiv G transversely mounted engine. So that means the 4 cylinders under the head are just like that in configuration. There is a serpentine belt right there, alternator. You can see it's tight because this is kind of like a front-wheel drive setup, although the all-wheel drive on this is actually really good. And a lot of people, myself included, have experienced it in winter and have been pretty impressed with what these can actually do. You have the exhaust manifold and heat shield back there. The transmission is kind of underneath this like a transaxle, and then it has a physical drive shaft to the rear. You have the airbox, the induction, the intake side right there. You have the periphery, reservoirs, you have the fuse box, you have the battery. Honestly, everything in here looks pretty straightforward. There's a little bit of room to work on it. Thankfully, this is a very reliable engine because it is sitting in here a little bit tighter on this smaller vehicle than it would be on the CX-5 or the CX-50 that has the same powertrain. And with that said, let's drop the hood, take it for a drive. Initial driving impressions of the 2025 base model Mazda CX-30. Let's get up to speed. First gear pulls pretty good. After that, this 2.5-liter naturally aspirated engine kind of just runs out of steam. It's a little bit anemic, especially at altitude where we are about 4,000 feet of true altitude here. But visibility, the front half of the vehicle is okay. The windows really aren't that tall though, and it's more noticeable in person than on camera. But at least the A-pillar isn't too wide. The blind spot monitoring is nice to have. And the side mirrors are actually really big. You can see right down the sides, and the rear view mirror goes right down the center. So you do have a pretty good sense of where the proportions of this vehicle are. And then just sitting in here, it's comfortable, it's really nice to drive, and it feels higher end than you would expect for a base model. The speakers I do wish were better. The Bose speakers are a nice upgrade to this. But honestly, if you're not going to often have full-size adults in the back seat or carry a ton of cargo capacity and max out the limits of this vehicle and its 850-pound payload capacity, this is a very nice, very fun driving subcompact crossover. And it feels kind of like a sports car turned into a mini SUV. Kind of like you're compromising. You can't have the Camaro. You don't want the full-size SUV, and you can swing the size of this. This might be the right vehicle for you. Handles really well. The steering is absolutely numb because it's power steering, but it is sharp, it's direct, and it has enough heaviness to it that it doesn't just feel like it accidentally turns the wheel too far and you accidentally go out of your lane. This feels intentional, it feels purposeful, and it almost feels like a truck in terms of the heaviness of the steering, which I personally really like. But even at speed, it feels stable. If I would be quiet for just a moment, that would make for a more boring video, but the wind and the road noise really isn't that bad. I think these all-season tires do a pretty good job with about 930 seconds of tread, and I don't think the coefficient of drag is probably too high on this vehicle, because even though it's not windy, the wind noise really isn't bad. With just one window rolled down, though, I do have to say the direction I'm going today, everything considered, the wind buffeting is very bad on this. So keep that in mind, and when you test drive one for yourself, see how the different windows play a role if you are someone who likes to drive with the windows down. But let's see how it handles this little bump right here. Ooh, not too bad. It's a little bit rougher than some other vehicles in this class because this is more sporty in suspension, but it was doable. It wasn't like an actual sports car. So anyways, guys, I highly recommend you test drive one of these. Try to find a base model. They are hard to find, and I'm so glad I could find this one to demonstrate how it does, in my opinion, for you guys. Anyways, I'm going to get to the private road and do a 0 to 60, and then we'll wrap this video up with my final thoughts. 0 to 60 in the base model 2025 CX-30. Keep in mind, density altitude's about 3,600 feet, so this is down on power at least 11%. It is in sport mode. I'll do a little bit of a brake rev, and we'll see what it can do. Pretty good first gear. And true 0 to 60 came in at 8.92 seconds. Which might not be what the magazine rates it, but for this area, that's actually not too bad for this class of vehicle. My final thoughts of the 2025 Mazda CX-30, but specifically this S trim level, the base trim level. And after comparing it to a Subaru Crosstrek base just a few hours ago, I'd have to say this is a very good bargain, a very substantial vehicle, and it's one of the best. It really offers a whole lot of value for the mid $20,000 ballpark. Sure, you can spend almost 40 grand if you want a turbocharged, extremely loaded, heated, ventilated seat, you know, just crazy, luxurious little CX-30. And at that price point, compared to what that would compare and compete against, mostly German automakers, that is still a bargain. So it's kind of like whatever trim level you go with, you're going to be getting a good deal. Mazda, I really appreciate the value that they're bringing here and the price point that they are trying to attract a buyer that is not the high-end, luxurious, rich buyer like a lot of other automakers. Let's knock on Jeep for a minute. Jeep now mostly sells luxurious vehicles, but they're not reliable. They don't match the price point. Mazda, they are building reliable cars, but they're also safe. They put a really high emphasis on safety and trying to maintain now a top safety pick rating by even offering LED headlights on the base model and all the other features that this has to keep that rating. That's impressive. Kudos to you, Mazda. I hope you continue to build vehicles like you are today because this is a good one. But ultimately, guys, these are just my thoughts and opinions, and that's all they're worth. What are yours? Comment them below. But I always recommend you test drive one of these. And the competition, if you're going to spend a lot of money, you should have some fun. You should enjoy and make sure that you are buying the right vehicle for you. So check out all the vehicles that your heart might desire and have a good test drive. Really get to experience the vehicle. Anyways, guys, these are just my thoughts and opinions. I wish you guys the best. If you got anything out of this video, please consider liking it. Comment those thoughts below, subscribe if you haven't already, and check out Goody Motor Mazda, one of the best Mazda dealerships in the nation. See you guys.